It's the Essential Business Writing Skills module on rewriting. This is the punctuation exercise. Remember, when we edit in this order with an eye towards completeness, then organization, then style, then correctness. We're still on correctness. We're dealing with punctuation. And for this exercise, if you have not already done so, please pause the video, download the punctuation exercise from the online workbook, complete it, and then continue, or of course you can just pause as you go along. Okay, here we go. Number 1. The men in question, Harold Green, Jim Peterson, and Gerald Green, deserve awards. We need to separate the men in question slightly from the beginning, so easy enough, we'll just put a comma there. The men in question, comma, Harold Green, comma, Jim Peterson, comma, and Gerald Green deserve awards. Or we could separate them with parentheses. The men in question, parentheses, Harold Green, Jim Peterson, and Gerald Green deserve awards. Or if we wanted to emphasize those three men, instead of using commas or parentheses, we'd use dashes. So by using those dashes, we emphasize the men in question, not de-emphasize them. Okay, number 2. Several countries participated in the airlift: Italy, Belgium, France, and Luxembourg. You know, we just want to identify that list, so we know how to identify a list. We just put a colon prior to the list. Number 3, only one course was open to us. Surrender, said the ex-major, and we did. Oh, it looks like we've got a direct quote here. So, quote, only one course was open to us, dash, surrender, comma, end quote, said the ex-major, comma, quote, and we did. That's assuming that and we did was still part of the quote from the ex-major. If it wasn't, we would, of course, not have that in quotes. Number 4, Judge Carswell, later to be nominated for the Supreme Court, had ruled against civil rights. Okay, we've got later to be nominated for the Supreme Court in the middle of this sentence here, where the core is really Judge Carswell had ruled against civil rights. So we've got to kind of separate that out. One way would just be to use commas to separate it out, or parentheses. Now, both commas and parentheses kind of de-emphasize the later to be nominated for the Supreme Court. But if we wanted to emphasize that, well, you know how we emphasize: dashes then instead. Number 5, in last week's New Yorker, one of my favorite magazines, I enjoyed reading Leland's article, How Not to Go Camping. Among the most common punctuation mistakes that people make are how to handle titles. And here's the thing: New Yorker is a publication. How Not to Go Camping is the title of an article within a publication. So here's how we handle that. New Yorker is underscored as a publication. How Not to Go Camping is in quotes. Very common mistake is that people would put quotes around the name of a publication like New Yorker or the Wall Street Journal. No. You do put quotes around the name of part of a publication. So that would be like an article within a publication or a chapter within a publication. Now let's go back to New Yorker for a second. Underscore is just one way that we can show that this is the title of a publication. We've got 3. We can underscore it, which is what we did here, or we can bold it or italicize it. And those 3 formatting devices are side by side on your formatting toolbar there. So, of course, I could underscore it, or I could italicize it, as I did here, or I could bold it, as I did here. Number 6, this week we will have sales meetings in Boston, Chicago, and Phoenix. Got items in a series here, and this is a relatively simple one. We're simply going to put commas there: Boston, Chicago, and Phoenix. Number 7, this week we'll have sales meetings in Greenville, Michigan, Albany, New York, and Lewiston, Idaho. Wait a minute, do we have 6 meetings, or what's going on here? Well, obviously we have city-state designations here. So since my items have commas between the city and the state, I need to separate those items from each other with a harsher break, a semicolon. So meetings in Greenville, comma, Michigan, semicolon, Albany, comma, New York, semicolon, and Lewiston, comma, Idaho. Of course, this would be a good candidate for, rather than stay in sentence format, let's put them in a bulleted list so they can be easily glanced at. I think I would go with that. So there we go, Greenville, Michigan, Albany, New York, Lewiston, Idaho, with bullets. I would like to see Chuck Harris report. Oh, we've got a possession here. We're talking about the report of Chuck Harris. So we make that possessive by adding an apostrophe. I would like to see Chuck Harris report. Chuck Harris is singular. It ends in S. So we've got a choice. We could just add the apostrophe and stop, or we could add an apostrophe S. I would like to see Chuck Harris report. I would like to see Chuck Harris's report. I definitely prefer, I would like to see Chuck Harris's report. It just sounds a lot smoother to me, so I will go with that one. Number 9, I would like to see Sue Robbins' report. Same exact situation, same sentence, just change the name of the person. But now let's see, Sue Robbins, okay? I can just add an apostrophe and stop. I would like to see Sue Robbins' report. Or I could add an apostrophe S. I would like to see Sue Robbins' report. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that. That's kind of got that dragging Z, so I'm not going to do that. Again, that's your choice as the writer. Number 10, I heard him say, "I'll kill you," to his partner, testified John at the trial. Oh, we've got a direct quote here. Now, the direct quote is, I heard him say, "I'll kill you," to his partner. But that quote has, "I'll kill you." It has a quote within a quote. We know how to do that. Quote within a quote gets the singles. The entire quote gets the doubles. So there we go. Double quote. I heard him say, single quote, "I'll kill you," end single quote, to his partner, comma, end double quote, testified John at the trial. Number 11, when the teacher commented that her spelling was poor, Lynn replied, "All the members of my family are poor spellers. Why not me?" You know, this is a bad construction. This sentence construction is poor. I would change it. There's no law that says we can't do that. So if you are editing your document and you're having trouble with editing your document because the construction is suboptimal, change it. So I'm going to slightly change this. The teacher commented that Lynn's spelling was poor, period. Lynn replied, comma, quote, "All the members of my family are poor spellers, semicolon, why not me? Question mark, end quote." Or rather than stay with the direct quote, I could switch part of it to an indirect quote. When the teacher commented that her spelling was poor, comma, Lynn replied that all the members of her family are poor spellers, period. Quote, "Why not me? Question mark, end quote." Number 12, he used the phrase, "you know," so often that I finally said, "No, I don't know." Okay, we've got a couple of quotes here. He used the phrase, quote, "you know," end quote, so often that I finally said, comma, quote, "No, comma, I don't know," exclamation mark, end quote. I certainly didn't have to go with the exclamation mark there, but I think this would be a good place for it. The automobile dealer handled 3 makes of cars: Volkswagens, Porsches, and Mercedes-Benz. I could just put a colon in there, or I could go to a bulleted list. Hyphens can be used for bullets. Bullets themselves are better, but don't get too highfalutin with your bullets. You've got almost an infinite number of choices of what you can do with your bullets. I'm kind of leading into what I'm going to talk about in the module on visual appeal, but just because we can do some things with our computer formatting doesn't necessarily mean that we want to. I guess these check marks might be okay, but that's about as far as I would go. Number 14. Though Phil said he would arrive on the 9:19 flight, he came instead on the 10:36 flight. These are times, so we separate the hours from the minutes with colons. So there we go, the 9:19 and the 10:36. 15. Whoever thought, said Helen, that Jack would be elected class president. Okay, we've got a direct quote here. So, quote, "Whoever thought, comma, end quote, said Helen, comma, quote, that Jack would be elected class president, question mark, end quote." 16. In baseball, a showboat is a man who shows off. We're trying to emphasize the term showboat, and so we will use italics for that. There you go. That's all we need to do. Number 17. The minister quoted Isaiah 5:21 in last Sunday's sermon. The first time I encountered a punctuation situation like this, I did not know at all. I wasn't sure how to handle those references, so I looked it up in my handy dandy reference manual, and it told me that I was supposed to use a colon there. There are some obscure situations that you can't possibly remember. My preferred reference manual is the Gregg reference manual. Again, I'm just pointing this out to you because I think it's a good tool to have. Any reference manual that has the rules in there, will help you out. This, I think, is one of the best ones. By the way, this is the 11th edition. If you get an earlier edition, maybe cheaper, not a problem at all. These things don't change much at all. Number 18. There was a very interesting article entitled "The New Rage for Folk Singing" in last Sunday's New York Times newspaper. Well, we know how to handle a publication, New York Times, that's underscore or bold or italics. We know how to handle the name of an article, "The New Rage for Folk Singing," that is in quotes. So there we go, quote, "The New Rage for Folk Singing," end quote, and then New York Times underscore. Or I could have bolded it or italicized it as well. Whoever is elected secretary of the club, Ashley or Chandra or Aisha, must be prepared to do a great deal of work, said Wamita, the previous secretary. If I'm going to separate the first three with parentheses, I think I will use parentheses also for the appositive at the bottom, Wamita, the previous secretary. I could use commas, but then there'd probably be too many commas in there, so that's why I opted for the parentheses. Number 20, Darwin's On the Origin of Species, 1859, caused a great controversy when it appeared. If you look that up in a reference manual, you'll see that if you've got the date of the publication next to the name of the publication, you're supposed to put that in parentheses. So there we go. On the Origin of Species, there's the name of the publication, and then 1859, the date next to it in parentheses. Yes, Jim said, I'll be home by 10. Simple quotes. Number 22, there was only one thing to do. Study till dawn. Oh, I'm emphasizing study till dawn. I could use a colon to separate it, but if I really want to emphasize it, I'm better off going with a dash. Number 23, Montaigne wrote the following: a wise man never loses anything if he has himself. I can simply use a colon and then quote marks to separate that, or if I want to, I can kind of separate that by indenting the whole quote like that. Number 24, the following are the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. I could just separate those items in a list with a colon, or I could put them down in a bulleted list. These are square bullets. Those are okay, but I wouldn't go all the way to get goofy by actually changing the color there. My module on visual appeal will see that we don't want to get too fancy with things like that. And finally, number 25, arriving on the 8:10 plane were Liz, my old roommate, her husband, and Tim, their son. Okay, 8:10 is the time, so we need to separate the 8 and the 10 with a colon. My old roommate tells me a little bit about Liz, so I'm going to put that in parentheses there. Their son tells us a little more about Tim, so I'm going to put that in parentheses there. So I've got those three things: Liz, her husband, and Tim. And then I've got a little bit further explanation: my old roommate to explain about Liz, and their son to explain about Tim. Hope you did well on that punctuation exercise. Remember, punctuation is the one area that a lot of people have trouble with. So it's a good idea to kind of memorize the basic rules, but also nice idea to have a reference manual handy for when they get a little bit obscure. Okay, that'll do it for punctuation. Next up for correctness is dangling and misplaced modifiers. That'll be coming up in the next video.